Hello and welcome back to Aubrey, Books, and Coffee. Please grab your favorite beverage of choice and join me. I've got the big old boy today because we're going to be reviewing 28 books that I read this month. Oh my gosh. I ended up being in 2 different readathons, so of course the prompts there and the books just kept stacking up. I am so tired. But it was such a good month, and I really hope it was a good month for you guys as well. And being that it's Halloween, I hope that you guys have some fun Halloween plans this evening. We're going to take our daughter trick-or-treating, and this year she's decided that she's going to dress up as one of the characters from Demon Hunter, which is an anime, I believe, on Netflix. And so she's got her kimono and everything, and we're just going to get her all up and going trick-or-treating. Now, as far as costumes go, you may be thinking, oh, she's totally going to be that queen costume that we saw in the film before, in the video before. But no, I'm not. Here is my magnificent costume. That is what I am wearing trick-or-treating tonight, guys, because I'm tired. Because this is all I have the energy for. So these, I think, will be a little bit distracting as I review, right? So I'll take them off for now. Remind me later to put them on again as I say my goodbyes. So let's get started with all of these amazing books, because there were several winners in there and some not so much. And I even had one I had to DNF. I know. So let's get going. And as always, I love when you comment below to let me know books that you've read that are on my list that you also enjoyed, or maybe you also DNF'd. Starting off, I ended up doing Clown in a Cornfield, and I'm so glad that Cassidy recommended this one because it was so good. I ended up giving it a 4-star, and I ended up just really excited to want to read the sequel. I did not read the sequel this month because, as you can see, I already had a plate full of books to do. But I'm absolutely going to read the sequel next year. And also a caveat to that, I've had a lot of nightmares this month, you guys. And I have been extremely jumpy because of all of these books. So I'm so looking forward to next month being not scary. So moving on. Next, I read The Druid. And that one I gave a 2-star. I know Jeff Wheeler is super famous, #1 New York Times bestseller, and he has all these different series and everything that he's written. I just couldn't get into the story. I tried. The whole way I kept wanting more to happen with the main character, and she wasn't sure who she could trust, and it was this whole thing. And it's just so much along the way. I kept waiting for more stuff to happen, and it was just a whole lot of dialogue and a lot less action. And I don't know if it was even just because this month there were so many that I wanted every book to hold my attention, and maybe that's it. It just wasn't for me. The next one I did was The Outsider. Now, this one I gave a 3-star, mostly because I'm just not into the kind of thriller, thrasher, slasher that has to do with pedophilia. Being a mom, I'm super sensitive to that, and I don't enjoy stories that have that as a theme. And I knew going into it, a boy, had been hurt. I didn't realize there was a sexual component to it, and that just made it do the oogie factor for me. So it just wasn't for me. Also, I went into it thinking it was going to be just like a psychological one. It's not. It's Stephen King's typical going into the realm of supernatural. So I think maybe my expectations on it also were a little wrong, and so that was part of it. It just wasn't for me. That being said, I did watch the HBO series that was based off this book, and I gave that a 4-star. I think it's worth watching. Just know it's going to be kind of graphic, and it's going to be a little out there and weird in places. But Holly is one of those characters I completely fell in love with, and I could just watch a spinoff of just her at any time. So putting that out there in the world, please give us a spinoff with just Holly. So worth checking out, just wasn't up my alley. Then I read Cinderella is Dead. Now, this one I gave a solid 3 stars. I would have given it more, except again, there were times where it was moving extremely slowly. But I loved Sophia. I loved the whole concept of what went so wrong with Cinderella's story from what we are used to hearing. And I really appreciated the different secondary characters that were helping her along this path. And so I don't want to ruin anything. You know, I don't like spoilers, but it's definitely worth reading. I'm so glad I listened to Mrs. Sour and dove into this one because I am really happy that I read this. The next book I did was The Vampire's Promise. Now, when I read this back in middle school, it was called The Cheerleader. So they did rename these. Unfortunately, I only gave it a 3-star. Even with the nostalgia factor, it did not hold up for me. There's been other middle school books that have been written and I have read, like the Keeper of the Lost City series, that have, and of course Harry Potter, that have completely raised the bar, I think. So the ones that I enjoyed when I was growing up now feel very childish, like maybe they should be in an elementary school versus middle school level. But I am still keeping them because remember the whole series was given to me by my husband as a gift. I love it. I love the nostalgia behind it. I'm now scared to read any of the others though, because I am thinking they may not hold up either. The next one I did was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This one I gave a 3-star. I loved the concept of it being her end of senior year capstone kind of project. I love that she was telling her teachers one reason why she was doing it, and then there was an entirely different agenda that she had. I love the friendships that she made. I love the little bit of romance that got thrown in there, and I was completely surprised at the ending of what was disclosed. So definitely worth reading. I know this author has done other novels that have a similar kind of look to them and I'm wanting to check those out because this was just really well done. The next one I did was The Darkening. This one I gave a 3-star. It was a gorgeous book. It was a really, really fun story, and I really cared a lot about the main character here. What lost it for me to make it a 3 versus a 4-star, and unfortunately not getting that 5-star to keep the gorgeous book, so you guys can have it on the next drawing. What lost it for me was, I don't want to ruin anything, but suffice to say this storm that you don't want it to touch you because then you're storm touched and cursed. There's scenes that happen within the storm that you're going to read about. And those were so weird. They made me think a lot of, I'm trying to remember the name of that movie that has Natalie Portman in it, and she goes inside this clear like wall that keeps encroaching on the world, and when she goes in there, everything is so weird. Like the plants look weird, the animals are, combined weird and different, and it just seems like, not reality kind of a thing. It's chaos. That's what it felt like in this, and it was beautifully written. I'm trying to think of how to word it. It just, for me, it didn't click because it felt like you had this one story going, and then the minute they get in there, it was almost like an entirely different story. Like maybe that's when they should have just, with them walking in the book, and then have a sequel carry on from there. Because for me, it felt like 2 totally different stories that were mashed together, and it just didn't feel as smooth as I was wanting. So that's why I got the 3-star. But if that's the kind of thing that doesn't bother you at all and you're able to just, switch tracks and you're good, definitely read it and check it out. It's worth reading. Then I read The Dream Thieves. Now this one I also gave a 3-star. I didn't like it as much as The Raven Boys, the first book in this series. I'm hoping the next one will be better. It's not that it was bad, and you still get to see all your favorite characters in it. It was less character-driven than quest-driven, I guess. And for me, I was less invested in the quest than the actual characters. I think a lot of it also is the ending. And again, I'm not spoiling anything, but something happens at the ending I did not see coming, and I'm not happy about it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on. Then I read The Girl in the Locked Room. I gave this one a 3-star, which, considering it is middle school and it was super thin and it was a simple story, is a high rating for that. It wasn't anything super intense. It wasn't super scary. The girl actually befriends this little ghost girl. It's not so bad, and that happens right away, so that's not a spoiler. It's just all about that friendship and trying to help each other out. So it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. There really wasn't any spooky vibes at all going on inside of it for being a ghost story, but it was cute, and I am glad I read it. Then I read White Smoke. This one got a 3, almost a 4-star. What happens in the beginning, so again, this is not a spoiler, that really kind of threw me, is I thought White Smoke was going to be like a reference to a ghost kind of persona or something, or that these spirits are following her or something like that. But instead, Marigold is all about the pot. Like, she likes to stoke it up. And so it's a whole lot of dynamics of living in a blended family with, a stepfather and a stepsister and then her own brother, and trying to work out those dynamics mixed with a very racist town and some backwater horrible things that they're trying to pull, and mixed with her obsession with pot. And so it was very unique and interesting. I will say, though, there were several sarcastic one-liners that Marigold says that just really had me laughing for a long time. That made it a really good and fun read for me. Again, the only times it was really spooky is when I was listening it on an audiobook and the narrator was narrating for like a door suddenly opening or something like that. And every time the narrator did that, I jumped because it was so super creepy. So well done, narrator, right there. But that was the only time. The rest of the time, it's not really a scary, scary book. But it was worth reading. I hope you guys go check that one out. Then I read Shadow and Bone because that was the apothecary jar pick. You guys, I hate myself for waiting so long to read this because it was a 5-star. Oh my gosh, it was a 5-star read. I love it. I am so glad I have book 2, and I'm going to dive into that as soon as I can because I thought it was fantastic. I love all the characters. I love Mal. It just everything. And it's been a really fun ride because Kim from Whimsical Narratives, I'm going to, of course, promote and plug her. She's already read this series, and she's actually watched the Netflix series that came out based on these books. And she warned me ahead of time, and so I'm going to share this warning with you guys. Do not watch that TV series until you've read the books, because in the very first few episodes, they spoil something pretty huge that's a big reveal in the books. So I've not looked at the show yet. I'll have to add that in on a review later when I finish the trilogy. But I did finish the first one, absolutely loved it, super excited to go into the next one. And I've been telling her on her Tuesday reading sprints that she does every Tuesday morning, I've been telling her how I'm doing, like what page I'm on. And I'm like, I'm so confused. Do I like this one character? Do I not? Do I trust this character? Do I not? And she's been laughing and having a good time following along. So highly recommend this book. I'm sure you all have already read it, but I will keep you updated as I go. Then after that, I did that Bookopoly roll, which was for the large book, and so I chose The Poet. Now, this is one my husband has wanted me to read. He has now recommended 4 books total to me. I have liked 1. Not good rates, right? In his defense, the one I liked, the Kaiju Preservation Society, is the one that he had read most recently. These other ones have all been read years and years before he even knew I existed on this planet. So maybe it's just his tastes have changed or whatever the case may be. I really did not like this one. I think it's lucky it got a 2-star. It is very well written. It's very deep in the weeds with the minutia of police procedure and FBI procedure, and whenever they're trying to figure out how to figure out who this unsub might be, so doing all of that, it's very, very detailed. And on top of that, we're supposed to like this main female lead. I don't. I thought she was a butthole the entire time. I thought she was very shallow, very callous. I thought she was an absolute horrible person. She lied a lot. Like, I hated her. So if the author was trying to get us interested in the main character liking this girl, he failed because I did not like her at all. And on top of that, it was, again, it had, which I didn't know, I thought it was going to be all about this cop finding his brother's killer. And instead, it was actually the twin that's a reporter trying to solve the murder of his brother, the cop. And these other murders that seem to follow the same pattern, which has Poe's poetry at the scene, which is why the book's called The Poet. And again, though, it had pedophile type stuff involved. And so I remember at one point I'm reading this and I looked over at my husband and I'm like, really? Like, do you know me at all? Why would I want to read this? And he was like, I'd forgotten that was even in it. And I'm like, how? It's literally the whole time. But anyway, so it just wasn't for me, but definitely pick it up if that is something that could be, up your alley at all. Obviously not the gross stuff, but the police procedure, and there were some unique twists I didn't see coming. I did not know who was the person at the end until it was revealed, so that was a very well-kept secret by the author. So yeah, feel free to check it out. I'm just really hoping I don't have to ever read books like these again. Then after that, remember I had told you about Cassidy with Covers of Cassidy, has a book club, the Backlist Books. And I'm going to make sure to have pictures and stuff. And so they did The Shadow of What Was Lost. I gave this a 5-star. I had hoped it would be, and it was. And it makes me super excited to jump into the next one, even though I'm pretty sure each book gets thicker and thicker, if you can believe it. Definitely join her book club. I'm going to be there. I love, love, love this series. And I'm glad we get 2 months to read each book because they're chunky. And then I did the Number Generator, and that one ended up doing a Deadly Education. This is the one I DNF'd. I know, I did not finish this. And the reason why is I found myself every time I had to pick up the book, and I even tried audio, every time I would go to listen to the audio, I dreaded it. I kept pushing the book and the audio to the very back burner because I try to read or listen in so many every day. That way I get through them all in time. And I got to where I just kept pushing it off and pushing it off. And I just was not liking it. I tried, you guys. I heard this is dark academia. It's way different from Atlas 6. It's way different from anything I had read actually before. It just wasn't getting me. I just found I could care less about the main character. I could care less about her angstiness. And I got to where I just was like, I don't even care about these creatures they're fighting. Like, I'm really just not invested. So I DNF'd it because life is short and I had 28 other books. When I tell you I read 28, I mean I read 28. So this would have been number 29 had I finished it. So yeah, I was pretty full anyway. Then I joined, as you know, the readathon with Reads with Rylanne, Spooktober. And so the following books I'm going to list, I put in that readathon for the Team Serial Killer. So I had to read the team book for Team Serial Killer as well as fulfill all their prompts. But I also got invited to Camp Crystal Lake. This was put on by Barb's Bookland. And again, I'm going to make sure to have pictures, and I'm going to link below all these links for you guys. And it was absolutely amazing because they had like a Discord where you had your team, and I was Team Elm Street with Paige. And I just had a blast putting all these books in there, chatting with the teams. You had a team book that gave you extra points. You had team prompts. You were able to steal other teams' books for extra points, which is why my list got so incredibly long. And it was just so much fun. I really enjoyed it. You even had team movies where you'd watch your team movie and stuff together. So it was so much fun. I really hope she does this again next year. And I would encourage you guys to join if she does because it's a lot of fun. So here's all the books that got put into both of those readathons. We Were Never Here. This one I ended up giving a 4-star to. I really liked it. It's not where I thought they were going to go. I thought the best friends got into trouble and that's what the whole book was going to be about. It's actually more about the relationship between these two friends. And I don't want to give anything away. Just know that I did not expect the twist that came. And oh my gosh, it makes me so grateful for my friends. That's all I'm going to say about that. The next one I did was Wicked Saints. Now, this one was also for prompts for the Magical Readathon with Book Roast. And all these books, I also was able to use some of them to fulfill prompts. So I have fulfilled the whole first run. So now I look forward to continuing the Magical Readathon in December, because November is going to be way too busy, and to be able to continue on that quest and be caught up by the time she does it again. With Wicked Saints, I gave it the 3-star because it was a solid read. I'm not continuing the series though. It was a beautiful book. The author created a really intriguing world. Is a little too political, if that's a word, for me. Too many politics. I'm just not into that. I am always more into characters together than I am extra dialogue or the politics of a place. So for me, it was worth reading. I encourage you guys to read it too. I'm not continuing the series though. The next one I did was Night Shift. This one was spooky. I didn't expect it to be, but it was. It kind of follows multiple, I don't want to say timelines, but it's 2 different murders. So I guess it would be 2 different timelines. And I just didn't see the killer coming. Again, it was written very where you're trying to get the characters together and their relationships, but there's spooky stuff and you're starting to doubt this person, and then you're like, ooh, but that was creepy. It's got to be that person. And you just are left wondering who it actually is. And so it was really good. I did really enjoy it. It had me on the edge of my seat. I was excited every time I went back to it. So highly recommend it. Then I read The Dragon's Promise. And this one I gave a 5-star. Just like 6 Crimson Cranes, the author did not disappoint in The Dragon's Promise. I think I like 6 Crimson Cranes better, but I still really did enjoy this story, and I still love the characters' relationship. And yeah, it was interesting being in the dragon's world, that's for sure. So it was definitely worth reading. I'm definitely going to keep them. I could totally see myself rereading later on, and I encourage you guys to check it out as well. Then I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. You guys, this was a surprise 5-star for me. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was weird, it was twisted, it was gross, it was stuffy, it was hilarious. Oh my gosh, it just, especially I think as a woman, as a mother, as a wife of a husband that you sometimes get frustrated with, as somebody who loves books and book clubs, as someone whose imagination can run wild, all of these things, it just fit all the things. And I just really loved it. I can't even put my finger on one specific reason, but I did. And I highly encourage you guys to read it. It is fantastic. And the audiobook version is also done very well. So if you want to go that route and just listen in your car when you're running errands, I recommend it. Then I read Out of My Mind. This one I gave a 4-star because I am not going to read it again. Had it been a less heavy subject matter, I would have given it a 5-star. It was beautifully written. This fulfilled one of the prompts in my readathon where you do some kind of disability representation. And so it's about this girl who is brilliant and amazing and kind and compassionate, but she's unable to use verbally her words. And so it's about her struggle, and people always assume that she has no mind of her own, and instead she's smarter than everybody else in her grade. And it's just about the struggle there of society mishandling situations with people who we see as having disabilities and not actually thinking about it in reverse of how brave and how strong they are, that they cannot easily just spit out words like we can, but all the thoughts are in there. Like, how frustrating would that be for you, for someone to try to talk down to you like you're an animal or a pet, when you could think circles around them all the live long day. You're just unable to get it out. And so it was just a very unique perspective. I loved it. I loved her family dynamic and how supportive they are for her. And just, again, everything in her mind, she's just so sweet and so brilliant. And so I highly recommend you read it. I recommend you have your friends read it. I recommend you have, if you have children, have your children read it. I really think that this gives a perspective that we all could use. And I thought it was a beautiful book. The next one that I read was The Girl in Red. Now, this one I gave a 4-star because I was so frustrated at the ending. And it was funny because all of our team Elm Street, this was our team book, and everybody kept saying, I loved it, but the ending felt too short. I loved it, but I really wanted more. I loved it, but the ending was so abrupt. And I'm thinking, oh, well, it can't be that bad. You know, for me, especially when I've got 28 books, I'm kind of happy when they're wrapping up. But they were right. So a heads up, the book is wonderful. It's worth reading. It's very interesting. It's very fast paced, which you know I like. But at the end, you are going to feel like, why did we just wrap everything up in 5 minutes? Like, could we not have stretched it out even a few more chapters? So, but it was a really fun read, and I recommend it. The next one I read was Dead Harvest. Now, this one I gave a 3-star. I didn't know what to expect. It was one of my team prompts. It's a short, thin read. It's probably middle school level. I went into it thinking there was going to be some kind of haunted jack-o'-lantern scarecrow situation because of what the cover looks like. And that's not the case. There's actually a whole hunting thing this town does where they're hunting this particular scarecrow guy and all the stuff therein. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I did not expect what happened to happen, and it made it so much more interesting than just a straight up spooky read. So highly recommend it. A lot of twisted and twisty turny stuff. So take a look at it. The next one I did was The Exorcist. I know this is not going to be a popular opinion. I gave it a 2-star. I only read it because it was another team's book and I was able to steal for extra points. I had seen the movie years and years ago, of course, and it was spooky as all get out, of course, but the book was really perverted, and there was a lot of moments that were super dry. A lot of the time when I expected it to jump right in with the possession, instead it's building up of the fact that this little girl's mother is an actress, but she wants to be a director, so it's a whole lot of meetings that she takes trying to further her career before you even get to the little girl getting possessed. And then after she gets possessed, there's a whole lot more pervy stuff that this demon makes her do that isn't even in the movies, probably because it wouldn't have been allowed. I mean, it's gross. And what was shocking to me was my husband is all about, researching fun facts and things like that. He said the actual possession that happened that this story was based off of was a little boy. And some of these things that the author put in there would never have even happened to this little boy. And so it came straight from the author's mind, and that is twisted. So I think Stephen King and this author should totally write a book together, and that would be making a whole lot of other people out there super happy, but not me. So 2-star for me because it was very dry, very detailed. They went into a whole lot of details of altars that had been desecrated by Satanists and all the details therein that you could totally live without. I just was not into all of that. So for me, it was a 2-star, but I got the points for it. So then the next one that I read was Just Like Home, which was from Once Upon a Book Club. This was from the Trick or Treat box. So you'll have to go to that video and watch it to see my full review on it. But for that book, I did give it a 2-star. And I explain in detail why in that video. Then I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And this was the treat in that Once Upon a Book Club Trick or Treat box. And this one I gave a 4-star. And I went into more detail in that video on why for that. Then I read My Best Friend's Exorcism. This was another team's book that I got to do a team steal. I gave this one a 3-star. It was cute. It's still an exorcism. There's still some gross parts, and what this teenage girl ends up doing to her so-called friends because she is possessed. And so it was interesting, but it was very sweet how much her best friend loved her and was willing to risk to never give up on her and to help her. So I really enjoyed that. And then I watched the movie because you could do a team steal of the movie. And the movie was actually pretty close. There were a few things that had been changed up a bit, but overall it had the same feel to it. And so I gave that movie a 3-star as well. And I recommend you guys check those out. They're fun. Then I read The Lost. This one I gave a 3-star. It felt very kidnapping meets torture chambers meets escape room. It was very interesting. And there's like apparently a whole series that Natasha's done. I'm just not going to continue the series, but I can see the pull. I can see the draw. And you really do feel like you're in those torture rooms with her. So very, very well done as far as descriptions and writing goes. Beautifully done. I just am not into reading that. So not for me. Thank you. The next one I read was Direwood, and that was a 2-star. This one has come out this year, and I saw it on a list of excited that's coming out kind of list. I don't know why I'm air quoting everything today. I just am. I'm sorry. So anyway, for friends out there. But anyway, so I did Direwood. I was not impressed. For as much hype as went out with it, it felt like a vampire-y thriller, but with worms and with lots of garbage and gross and decaying things and just what this one girl's willing to do. I don't know. It to me, it wasn't even particularly scary, particularly compelling. Didn't feel at all realistic. There was nothing in here for me. I'm sure lots of people have loved this book. It just was not for me. Then the last one that I read was a huge surprise. It was another team's book that I stole, and that was Crave. And I gave that a 4-star. I really liked it. Now, this is another kind of vampire-y one. It's kind of a Twilight, but mixed with an academia setting of supernatural beings. It even had a point where she doesn't quite know he's a vampire yet, so he literally gives her Twilight to read. And I thought that was really cute. So there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek with this too, and a lot of humor and sarcasm and an overarching, plot that's going on that I'm not going to divulge because you don't find out until, of course, like halfway through the book. And it's a series. And so I'm super excited to go on to the next one. And in fact, Crush is the next book after this one. And it was my birthday request from my mother. So she got that for me for my birthday run. And so I have the next book whenever I'm continuing the series. So let's see, I want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, my writing prompts. The role said I just had to listen to 2 podcasts, and so I did. I learned how to pick an editor, and so I have actually sent off a request for copy editor for my books, and I'm supposed to get quotes back sometime next week, so we'll see. Then I also did the Megan and Myra's Planners and Wine podcast. Loved it as always. They have me cracking up. That particular podcast I listened to, though, was mostly about Halloween and what they're doing for Halloween celebration. So it was very timely and fun. Didn't really do much for my writing career, but it was a lot of fun. So that's all I've got, you guys. Oh my goodness. That was a lot. I look forward to November being a little bit easier. I hope you guys are too. And look forward to those roles. Hopefully they do well by me. And thank you guys for joining. Like, subscribe, send your friends, and have a happy Halloween.